In this how-to video, I will demonstrate how to use constraints to imitate the cardinality for the pointers, and I will also explain how to use asynchronous callback so that um, when using callback the results get updated and it gets reflected properly while returning. So I'm using homework 3 as an example to demonstrate constraints and asynchronous call in JavaScript. So let's go through one by one. So for that, let me start the WebGME. This is my WebGME CLI project. So I'm not doing this thing because this has been done over and over again, and I don't think that anyone has problem with this. So start WebGME start. Yeah, now my server is running. In config/config default.js, make sure that you add these two things. So config.addon.enable equal to true, and a config.core.enable custom constraints equal to true. Now let's load the project. Create new. I'm going to logic demo how to demo logic. Okay, so let's create, but I'm not going to create an empty project. I will import the same submission that I had made for my homework 3. So this is this HW logic 3. So as you can see that I have 1 2 3 4 5 examples, but I don't have any constraints defined here. So you can see that there is no constraints. Let me grab mouse. It will be easier to navigate using mouse. Before defining constraints, what we are going to do is, like in the meta, make sure that you have valid plugins like constraint evaluator checked and add-ons, constraint add-ons. After doing this, like I'm going to first describe you the limitation of this model and why we need constraint in this model. So let's go to the logic circuit example 1. Here you can see that like I have an input port, so each gate can have some input port and output port. Since this is AND gate, so AND gate has 2 input port and 1 output port. This was restricted using the cardinality here. So as you can see, this is 2 input gate and this has some cardinality of, it's not very clear here, but like 2 input gates have cardinality of the 2. So each gate will contains only 2 input port and 1 output port. This is only applicable for 2 input gates. But for example, if I have a NOT gate, the NOT gate will have 1 input port and 1 output port. So this can be easily restricted using the cardinality while defining the inheritance relationships. No, sorry, not the inheritance relationship. I forgot, like what should I, yeah. So this was association. So using the association, I can describe like how many one class, how many object one class will have. So but the problem occurs when I try to like I want like one input to be connected to only one input port, but this cannot be possible. See, for example, I can create this thing. This does not make sense, right? I mean, why will I want to do this? So what I thought, like can this be done using the pointers? So in meta model, as you can see that I don't have any way to define cardinality for the pointers. So I can even if I define like this, I can have any number of like this, or even any number of things. So but I don't want this. So for this thing I will use constraints. Also another problem is that I can have this kind of gate, right? While evaluating boolean expression for this logic circuits, I will have problem because this is dangling and it does not have any connection to each other. Also, it may be possible that like I have two inputs and one output for this gate, but no port is connected to each other. So this may be a problem. Um, some of you may ask like there can be more than one output, but no, I have restricted it using the cardinality of the association. So I cannot drag more than one output, so I'm fine here. Also, I can have one input but which is not connected to anyone, so this should not be this should not happen. So this is an invalid model. So using the constraints, we can restrict these kind of things before generating any kind of the code, or in my case I have just generated a boolean expression instead of generating a very long code, because I find it like a little bit easier, though I mean that was not a big deal. If you had taken 574 then in that class, and that was already done, so I didn't think that I was doing anything new, so I just generated boolean expression. Anyways, so let's do how to use the cardinality, but okay, no, this one is my plugin for the homework 3. Okay, so did I forget something? Check constraint, check meta rules. Okay. Right now basically I don't have any constraints defined, so let's see what happens. I mean project is valid. Okay, all right. So for the I have to define constraints for gates. So instead of defining constraint for each and every gate, I will just directly define constraints for my virtual class, which is abstract type. So I will define constraints for this abstract type gate, and it will be automatically reflected to all other subclass that has inherited from this abstract gate class. So okay, so I will name my this constraint to unconnected port. So basically I want to check if in a gate, if there is a port that is unconnected, or if gate does not have a port. So in that case my model should be invalid and I should not be able to generate any expression. So unconnected port. Okay, let's delete these comments. I don't think that it's very much necessary. Also I will in this example I will show you how to use asynchronous callback, because most of the time like we will have multiple nested callbacks, and in that case it becomes very tricky to return any value. That if you want to return any value, for example, if you define like this, let me show you. I think I have opened this thing opened. Let me check. So okay, so if you define your callback like this, then when you try to update the result here and try to return it, then this will not happen, because this is a part of the asynchronous callback, and if you have changed your result value here, then it will not be reflected while returning the callback at the end. So even if you reached here and you updated the result here, this is not going to get reflected and you are not going to achieve anything. So I mean I have I tried to find out a way to handle this thing, and I was pretty much successful. So let's start coding. I need parents meta because I don't want I only want constraint checking to happen inside a model of a meta model. So as you can see on the right side, we have a logic circuit example 1 2 3 4 5, and these also logic get modeling language, and inside it I have some components. I don't want constraint to run inside the logic gate modeling language. I only want to run inside the example. So I have to check before running the constraint that what type of the meta I have. And this thing is necessary because if, let's say, well, in this case it's not necessary, but for example, if my constraint is traversing through a logic gate modeling language, so it does not have a base meta, so library root will be the meta. So in that case it will return something that is null, and I don't want that. So yeah, so you should check if it's null, then just assign library root. So check port of gate is actually a function that will help you in returning any callback from an asynchronous call, so that at the bottom when you will um, try to return an updated value, it will get reflected. Traditionally, you don't write like this. I mean, in the few examples that was done in the class and on the piazza or in the live demo, this was not the demo. The example was not done like this. But in this, the way I'm doing, in this way you will be able to do the asynchronous call still while simultaneously updating for the values. So this checking done function will be our callback that will handle that will handle how to update, how to return and updated values of the result. I will need to know what kind of the meta a child of a gate has. Child of the gate means like input port and output port. It cannot have other kind of the childs except input port and output port, because I have not defined my model like that. So this will be pretty easy to check. Just take the meta name, so if meta name equal to input port, so if meta name is input port, then I will check whether it has any incoming connection to the input port or not. If it's an output port, then I will check if it has an outgoing connection to it or not. So code dot load collection child underscore name. Okay, child underscore what did I do? No. Okay, thank god it's saved. Child underscore node destination. So what kind of object has this child node as a destination, or in my case it will be an input post as destination. So this is function we need to make sure that we are providing a descriptive message when model fails, so that diagnostics will be easier. if there is no incoming connections to the input port, then it means that the input port is not connected uh, not connected to any other gates or an input signal. So in that case I should say that my constraint has been violated, and I should return has violation true. I can also print this message in console for diagnostics and return checking done. Alright, after that too many brackets, so I need to make sure that my nested I have closed the brackets properly. Okay, so in case of the output port I will check only if um, if there is any incoming any outgoing connections from an output port or not. Now let's copy it from here. This else is for like if gate does not have any children, then execution will come here, which basically means that I have not defined any port for any gate. In that case also my model is invalid and it should return true. So I completed this callback for core load children. Yep. And then I will define a function checking done, that you have seen, like I have used checking a lot of times, but I have not yet defined it. Okay, so let's define it. And I will callback error, a result. Okay, right. So, and I need to call this as well. So what was the function for the callback? Check port of gate. Okay, so instead of this I will call this function. All right. And I also need to close this else. All right. So let's make sure that syntax is correct by typing in by pasting it in a so well, all right, I already have somewhere. Okay, so I should try this. We save demo.js1.js. Okay, just to make sure. So this is matching with. Okay, no, I have done probably something wrong, and okay, so let's correct it. Okay. Yes, this is difficult. I cannot collapse this. Okay. This will not go here. Like that. Okay. So this should not go here. Okay. Now it should be fine. Yep. So I hope this should be right. All right. Now let's test it on. I have one dangling gate, and this should flag an error. So okay, I got an error. Hmm. Unexpected token comma. Okay. Ah, still uncount exception. Meta is not defined. Hmm. I wish it could tell the name. Oh, okay, okay. I missed it. Uh, okay, I should go to the VI. Okay, I think it's taking too much of the time. Um, so I had written like earlier that code that is I am sure that definitely it's working. Or I can do like WinDiff to see what mistake I am doing. So let's do this diff demo unconnected port. So okay, this is difficult to find out. hmm. Okay. I should just copy and paste that. I have the working code actually. Okay. So but now I think you got an idea like how to use the asynchronous call and actually basically define the constraints. So it's I mean the code is no different from the plugin code, but you have to add an additional logic in case of the asynchronous callback, like how to use it. So this is the basically the code. You can pause the video and then um, check the code and then understand it. So okay. Uh, so let's see. So it has a model validation like and with path has no port defined. So you as you see here, like I have no path, no port defined for this, and now let's put some ports. All right. So now check. mm, okay. So now you can say that for and get for get and with path, output port with path is unconnected. Okay. So now let's try to connect some output port. So let's I delete this thing and I connect this here. Okay. Now let's check again. Okay. It should now have get with which input port with path mg is unconnected. Alright. So as you can see that like um, whenever I'm doing some um, invalid model, whenever I'm designing invalid model, it's giving an error. So let's revert back. Okay, let's delete this thing now. Uncount exception. Okay. Now make sure that everything is good. So my model passed. Now let's define another constraints. So this constraint will help me in checking if there is more than one input connection, more than one connection to the more than one incoming connections to the input port. I don't need to worry about output because I mean it's totally valid for output to go to the multiple gates. For example, I can do like this. uh, okay. Okay, it does not have a port. First define the port. Okay. So this is totally valid and it's not going to invalidate our model or like unambiguous results, so this should be fine. uh, Uncount exception. So let's define another constraint. Another constraint I will have for my input port. Let's check the working model that I had. Okay. Okay. So incoming con. Okay, just incoming con. All right. Um, so idea is also pretty much same in this thing, that I'm going to check for the first I will check um, whether in this case I don't need to check the parent of the meta because for the port parent will always be the gate. So in that case I will be fine if I will be fine. I do not need to check for the meta of the parent. All right. Okay. So let's copy the code from the working code. It will be much easier I think to demonstrate. So all right. So this is reading all the attributes from a node, which is basically a pointer, which is basically a port in our case, input port. this thing is making a asynchronous callback, and as you can see that I'm loading the load collection with the destination, because I need to check for the number of incoming connections. This is for the error, and if the incoming connection is greater than 1, then my model has been violated, and my model is no longer a valid model. And now I need to define also a checking done, and I need to call this. Okay, now let's create an invalid model. Okay, check for constraint. My model has been violated. So input port with path M51 has no more than one incoming connection, which is not allowed. Okay, so as you can see that my constraint is not permitting more than one incoming connection to the input port. All right, I have a third and the last constraint that I'm defining for input signals. So input signals are these A, B, all these signals are input, and I don't want signals to be a dangling signal, like just like this, unconnected, and it's not connected to anyone. So I don't want this to happen. So for this thing I need a constraint, and also I want this input connection to have a name, and name can be defined here as a value. Of course I could have defined name using the name attribute, but I didn't do that, and that's another story. All right, so let's define constraint for this thing. Okay, so I will name this constraint a dangling input. Let's delete the comment for easy readability, and I already have a working code that I tested last morning, actually this morning, not last morning. For input I need to check for the parent meta, because logic gate modeling language can contain input, which is basically part of the meta definition and not the actual model. So I need to check if input is contained inside the logic circuit examples, then only I will proceed for the constraint checking. In this example you can see that I have not used a similar kind of coding syntax that I used for the other two constraints, because in this case I don't need to traverse through any collections of incoming connections or outgoing connections or for the child, because I just need to check whether, like, actually I need to do that, but I'm doing it in a different way in this in this example, in this constraint example, just to show that there are multiple ways to do this for while checking for the collection of the paths. So as you can see, instead of loading the collection, I'm just getting the get collection paths of the source, and this will return an object, and I can just check for the object's length and tell if there is more than one connection or two connection, like that. So yeah, so this will check if parent meta is a logic circuit, then only I will proceed, and this connection is if, and this checking is for if an input signal has a name or not, or a white space. So if it is a null or if it's a white space, this is a regular expression for checking white space. So if it has a white space, then it will say that no, the input value is not defined or not valid. So and then it will just return the callback. Or otherwise, if source path collection is 0, like it means that input signal is not connected to any gate, then in that case also our model will be violated. So let's save this. All right, so drag this and now rerun. Check for constraint. So input value is not defined. Okay, let's define input value x and return. Check for constraints. Show result. Okay, input x with path /m/2 is not connected to any logic gate. So as you see that, like, with constraint we can easily define a constraint, and using these constraint we can restrict number of things that we want to do in our model. While doing the homework, I was really looking to define the cardinality of this pointer, but I could not find it. And as you can see that with the constraints this can be easily done. And so this will be able to help us in generating any code or any expressions from our designed model without any complex validation inside our plugin code. So I will upload it in on a Piazza, and I will also upload the WebGME file, so that if anyone wants to, like, reproduce this constraints, then he or she should be able to do that. I'm not going to I don't know if I am allowed to upload any JavaScript file for the constraint checking, but if Dr. Sprinkle allows to do that, then I will do that. Otherwise I'm not going to upload this. Okay, thanks for watching.